Put your tires on it, took your front tire off, and it had a coupler, and you put it on your car and you drove it home. This is a picture of one of the Arctic cats. For some reason, I have all my steel ones up, but I wanted to compare the Polaris and the Arctic cat. But the white hooded one, that was the deluxe model. Same snow machine, except it had a white hood. And for some reason, Cat made a big wide one, this one here that you see. That was the last. That was in 1966. Can you imagine? You look at that snowmobile, you say that's a 66. I mean, it had electric start, reverse, it had a 30-inch track, but it still had the chain with the webbing and the old cleats. When Skidoo was selling a one-piece rubber track and a two-stroke engine, and you know, that's what Skidoo was selling against that. Moto ski, you know, was in Canada. That's a tin cab moto ski. And, you know, I don't know, he built them in the garage, and I would say he got most of his ideas, a lot of his ideas from Skidoo. But talking about Skidoo a little bit, Armin Bombardier, I mean, he's probably the ones you're most familiar with if you heard talk about Skidoos. You know, they Bombardier is what they call it. His name is Joseph Armin Bombardier. He was born in 1907, and you know, at a very early age, he built things like, here's a boat and has a clockworks in it, and he had a propeller, and he just was a tinkerer from the beginning. At age 15, his father gave him an old Model T, and he took the engine, put a propeller on it, and put some skis on it, and here he is sitting in front of it, not him. But this is a replica of it, but the original is gone. His father thought it was just way too dangerous, so he said no more. And he ended up, after graduating high school, going to school for mechanics and electrical engineering. And in 1926, he came back and opened Garage Bombardier. And from 1927 to 1930, he built 10 of these. These are basically Bombardier's, Model T Fords, and he put tracks on them, and 10 of them were sold. And what changed everything was, if you go back here, if you look on the front, that wheel, if that track didn't have, if you didn't have the tracks tight, the wheel would just spin in the track, and you couldn't go. With your drive wheel, there was nothing to hold it. So the thing that changed everything was that front sprocket. And he invented, his brother actually invented, his brother Joseph in '35 invented and patented the first rubber sprocket. I'm not going to say the first sprocket, but the first rubber sprocket, which now paved the way for him to build things that would go in the snow and be able to have his first, you know, commercial vehicle. And the B7 stood for a 7-passenger, and then they had a B12, which was a 12-passenger. Well, about that time, the war broke out, and so he started building them for the military. And they had one, those were, when they first built them, they were just plywood sides. Then he went to metal sides, and actually had them some were armored for the military. And it says that he built 1,000 a year for several years. So the numbers, I don't know. But when the war was over in 45, he built, from 45 to 52, he built about 2,600 units. And they used them as ambulances, hearses, and transport goods, and you know, up in the northern part of Canada. He also built another thing that kept him going. It was called a Muskeg. It was a 4-wheel drive thing, but that just kind of kept him going, and that's another story. But in '48, they stopped plowing roads in Canada, so that also really led to the numbers decreasing on this. So now they're plowing roads, so now it's becoming more and more a specialty vehicle. But in '58, his son invented the rubber track, the same track that's on a snowmobile today. And with the rubber track and now the lightweight engines, he always had a dream. He says that one day he will build a little snowmobile that will glide over the snow. He said that as a kid, and then he repeats the same thing in his mind. So in 1959, he built basically the first snowmobile, which was a tin cab. He built one first with plywood for his I think one of his grandchild. But this was really, 1960 was the first year, and this is made out of metal. It's in my museum. It has a 4-stroke engine, a little Kohler. It has the rubber track and the bogey wheels. And so now here you are, 1960, this snowmobile's out, and I showed you all that giant iron, those Polaris's, Fox tracks. No one has a sled like this but Skidoo. So, and I don't know if you remember as a kid that you had on your bike this little generator that you put it on your tire, and the little generator would turn, and that's what would keep your lights on. Well, that's what that did. That's what it used to keep its lights on. And here again, it's just a regular 4-stroke engine that could have been on anything, a mower or what have you. In '63, Skidoo built the first snowmobile with the fiberglass hood. But he basically already had everything, they changed the bogies and a few things, but he had a sled that would go through the snow and was lightweight. And also in '62, they had a JLO, a 2-stroke engine, which even is lighter, that they offered. So Skidoo was way ahead. And so Bombardier really from 1960 to '65 just took over. And finally in '65, Polaris decided to build a mid-engine sled. It was a Comet. And they took one of their big sleds, took the front half, put an engine in the middle, and put a track on the back, and they sold it, and they wouldn't go. They just almost put them out of business. They ended up taking them back and making them back into the 2-piece long Polaris. But by '66, Polaris was on its way to building real sleds, and Arctic Cat had built their first Black Panthers. And so really, by then, everybody was getting into it. And from '65 to '73, there was over 200 brands of sleds. And not manufacturers, brands. What would happen is a manufacturer, let's say Whippet, they would buy the tunnels from Arctic Cat, the skis from Arctic Cat, and they would put their own hood. I remember working at JCPenney and walking in the front and seeing that Whippet, and basically almost every part on it was Arctic Cat. The underneath, I think they bought like whoever, the suspension from Scorpion, it didn't matter. And same thing at Sears. I have a Sir Edmund Hillary edition, No, you got a snowmobile that's a Sir Edmund Hillary edition? I mean, I'm going to climb Mount, So, and that sled basically was just an OMC with a different paint job. And they did that to, hundreds of different sleds. And basically, most of these sleds that went by the wayside, and especially in '73 when the oil embargoes came, and Nader with his emission controls and noise pollutions, and just was not a good time for snowmobiling. And remember that, how you think about it today, there's only 4 major snowmobiles. There's a few little guys out there. But, we got all these trails, we got, trail systems numbered, the whole bit, and we can barely sell 4 brands. But back then, everybody had a snowmobile in their garage. Where'd they take it? Where'd they take it? Well, they took them, looks like in their backyard, But I remember as a kid in Auburn, and I don't even know if anybody knows, there was a snowmobile club that was called Les Copains. It was French, and I can remember the local businessmen had